Can you really hack your biological age? In this video, we are going to be seeing just that. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Manus and I help high-performing entrepreneurs scale their business by putting their health on autopilot. How do I do that? By laying down systems that are ready to be plugged in by yourself. So you know how you're thinking about all the aspects of your health as a high performer. You're trying to be healthy, and most of you are pretty healthy as well. Trying to sleep well, trying to supplement with the right things, trying to eat and cook the right things. But all that stuff, is it really conducive to you performing at your best, or is it draining your mental energy? Is it draining your mental batteries? So what I help my clients do is I help them put their health on autopilot so that they can focus on scaling their businesses, feeling like superhuman, because we create all that new energy, new focus, optimal health, so that you feel like 100 million bucks and you perform like 100 million bucks, so that you can scale your business to the next level. So in this video, we're going to be analyzing how to hack your biological age, essentially. What are the mechanisms around you aging, pretty much? Let's first of all start with that. Now, the things that really makes us age and develop diseases and get older and weaker is our cells lose their identity pretty much, and they become zombie cells. Now, if you don't know this, if you haven't heard this before, is that the information of our cell's identity is stored in our genetics, in our epigenome, essentially. So the epigenome is something that is essentially looped around some proteins called histones, and it is like you have a tire and you have a garden hose looped around that tire. And then if you put all those things together, you have a big structure of the chromosome. This is where the cell's information is contained. So every time that your liver cells need to read the liver cell genes, it opens a part of that epigenome through a process called transcription and translation, and it translates the information that what exactly should do. Now, over the course of the years, that garden hose thing, it gets looser and looser, and some parts of the DNA that shouldn't be read are read, and those parts are really frequently associated with diseases, dementia, and stuff like that. And your cells don't know what they should do, what their actions should be, what their responsibilities should be, and they become something called renaissance cells or zombie cells, and they lose their identity and essentially get weaker and die. And this is how tumors are developed, this is how diseases are brought up, and this is why we are weaker and older as we age, because our DNA essentially gets loose and things get unspooled and parts of the DNA get read that they should not get read. If we are able to maintain our DNA structures as tight as possible and healthy, we are going to be hacking our biological ages. Now, how do we actually do that? How do we proceed and make sure that our DNA structures, our chromosomes, and the end of our chromatins and our telomere is what's keeping the chromosome tight? So let's say this is the chromosome, which is obviously not. You have something in the end of the chromosome, which is something like this, that is keeping the chromosome tight and contained. The information right here is not able to be read, otherwise it would fathom away and we would die. But this, essentially, the telomere, is what dictates longevity, our age, because the longer and the stronger this part of the DNA is, the more tight is the information that is kept inside the chromosome going to be. So we need to make sure that our DNA structures and the mechanisms behind them that are keeping the DNA mechanisms strong and tightly kept together are working efficiently. Now, what are those mechanisms? Those mechanisms are families of proteins that are called Sirtuins. There are studies that are ongoing and studies that have been conducted by a biologist called David Sinclair, and he is actually conducting the majority of the studies behind those mechanisms. But the Sirtuins are a family of proteins that are responsible for repairing and making sure that the DNA structures are held together and pretty much repaired and folded. So those Sirtuins, there are many things that they do, and one of the things that they do is repairing and making sure that the DNA is healthy and kept together. So as we age, those Sirtuins are really busy doing other mechanisms, making sure that the cells do not die, and as David Sinclair has stated, it is like a Pac-Man structure. So what that does is that as we get older in age, this Pac-Man gets a bit like slower and is more busy repairing repairing the cells and repairing other damages that we've caused because of stress, because of it gets busier doing other kinds of things. The main responsibility that it has to repair and make sure that the DNA is tightly kept together, this gets left over so that the DNA is not given the attention that it needs and gets pulled out over and like bad things happen essentially. So if we are able to make sure that this Pac-Man is as efficient as possible, we're gonna be hacking our biological ages pretty much. I hope you understand the geek speech that I'm explaining here, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible in everyday speech. So how do we actually boost those Pac-Mans? Now, there are certain things that we can do, certain free and everyday tools that we can use to make sure that this Pac-Man is as boosted as possible, so that we are boosting our longevity and hacking our ages. And when we get to the 70s and 80s, we look like 40 and 50 years old, or 30 even. How do we do that? Now, before we actually analyze how to boost them, we also need to analyze some mechanisms around them. So first of all, the Sirtuins have a few things that they need in order to function. And the fuel that the Sirtuins need is something called NAD. Now, the NAD is like the gas, is like the fuel that the Sirtuins need in order to be faster, essentially, in order to operate. It's a molecule that we have in our body that they will take, and it's like fuel. So what we need to really do is boost that fuel, is to boost to have more NAD so that the Sirtuins can have more fuel to do their properties, to take hold of their responsibilities. How do we boost that NAD? The main thing is adversity, or something called hormetic stress. So the main things that are going to be turning that mechanism on and make sure that their self-defense mechanisms that are going to be turning the Sirtuins on is active is adversity. What kind of adversity? First of all, getting out of breath. This can be done by either running, cycling, boxing, whatever. Just get out of breath. Your body is going to be thinking that there is a threat in your environment, and therefore it has to turn on that mechanism in order for you to be competent. And the next time you get hunted by a bear or a boar or a lion, you're faster and you can survive and you can thrive. This is one side of the spectrum, adversity. The other thing is things like cold exposure. Cold exposure is going to be making your cells be more competent in surviving, because it's going to be something stressful for your system. It's stressing your cells, and your body does not like that, so it has to turn on the self-defense mechanisms in order for you to survive, and keeps that Pac-Man running and firing, because it has to do the job quick, otherwise it will die. Really good hormetic stress again. The other way of causing adversity is being hungry. Being in a state of hunger every day, essentially, for a specific amount of time. And that can really simply be done by fasting, whether that is 24-hour fasting, whether that's 10-hour fast, whether that is 16-hour fast. The good thing is that with the 16-hour fast is something that is called intermittent fasting. It's actually really simple to do. You just eat your food for 8-hour window and fast for the next 16 hours. This has tons of benefits in terms of longevity, in terms of focus, mental clarity, and in terms of overall health and biomarkers. So really simple and effective tool you can use to be hungry, because again, being hungry tells our body that we are not in a thriving environment, and therefore it cannot be competent. And like when we're always warm fed and content, our cells mechanisms, our cells do not have a reason for them to keep evolving, to keep staying strong, because the environment which we're staying at has zero threats. So this is why it gets competent and weak over the long term. So running or cardio, getting out of breath, being hungry, and exposing our bodies to cold. These are mechanisms that are going to be making those Pac-Mans operate on a high efficiency, and therefore keeping our DNA strong and intact and maintaining that information as healthy as possible for the long run. So the next thing that can boost the activity of the Sirtuins is something called resveratrol. Now, resveratrol is a molecule that can be found in red wine. This is why you might have heard that drinking a glass of wine every night is good for your heart and good for your system. But the reality is, in order for you to get the actual dosage, for you to see the benefits in terms of longevity, you have to drink like a barrel of red wine, which is going to be far outweighing the benefits that you're going to be getting with the intoxication, obviously. So we have NAD and we have resveratrol, right? So the NAD is like the fuel. The resveratrol can be seen as the accelerator. The NAD is something that the Sirtuins, the Pac-Man, needs in order to cut the DNA, making sure that it's looped, making sure that it is reserved, making sure that it is repaired. And the resveratrol is making sure that the Pac-Man is doing the jobs faster. So resveratrol, you can really get this from supplement form, essentially. It is really easy to get. You just need to make sure that it is a white powder-like form and not a brown crystallized thing, not a gray and brown form. You need to be making sure that it's either a crystallized white form or a white powder form. This is how you know that it's pure. You can get this from any good quality companies. I'm not going to be telling you what company I'm getting mine from. I'm not affiliated or anything. But if you do your due diligence, you can find good quality resveratrol and make sure that you're getting that Sirtuin booster in your day-to-day life. Now, this is the main mechanism for keeping your DNA intact. There are two other mechanisms. The other is for the mTOR proteins. You have a specific type of proteins in your system called mTOR. Now, what the mTOR does is it simply protects the body. Now, in order for you to get the benefits out of the mechanism called mTOR, you have to essentially, the way that it gets activated is when you have less amino acids in your system and when you have less levels of glucose in your system. So when your body does not detect a lot of amino acids, that means that you're hungry, you're fasting, you're not eating all the time, you're not eating like 7 times in a day, you're eating like 2-3 meals a day, even 1. Your body is not full of amino acids all the time, so the mTOR proteins get activated. And what this does is that it's protecting your system. It activates something called autophagy and it lowers the blood glucose levels. It protects the system from dying, essentially. It makes you stay longer, makes you live longer. It's a pro-longevity. When you do the opposite, when you have high levels of glucose all the time, because you're eating a lot of carbs for many meals in the day, when you're eating lots of proteins every like 2-3 hours, you're not activating that mTOR protein, you're lessening the activation of that mTOR protein, and this is pro-growth. This is what you want to have as a bodybuilder. So you want to think about like pro-growth means your muscles are gonna grow and everything that grows alongside with tumors. So pro-growth means pro-aging as well. When you're activating the mTOR because you are full of amino acids, you're eating amino acids every 2 hours because that is pro-growth, that is also pro-aging. So you're accelerating the aging process. Not only that, but it's tumor growth as well. So there is a double-edged sword here. This is critically important for many entrepreneurs that I see and many people that I see that are trying to perform at their best, be at their healthiest, and at the same time are eating every 2 hours, huge amounts of amino acids every 2 hours, and making sure that mTOR protein is always firing in a negative way. You're eating lots of carbs, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, carbs, proteins. That mTOR is going to be out of whack. Everything is going to be growing. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be getting bigger. Your muscles are going to get bigger. But this is pro-aging. This is accelerating the aging process, and this is well established through many studies. And this is also pro-growth in a general sense. So if you want to make sure that your body protects itself, you have to activate the mTOR protein through having less amino acids in your system and less glucose, less carbs. So when that is triggered in that specific way, the mTOR protein activates and protects your body. This is not the most ideal solution when it comes to muscle growth, muscle protein synthesis, but it's the most ideal thing for longevity and health. You can find the sweet spot, however. This is what I do. This is what I do with my clients as well. And that can be done through 2 to 3 meals a day, incorporating intermittent fasting to make sure that we activate those mechanisms, but not be in a pro-growth state. To mitigate the glucose response, to make sure that the glucose levels in our system are optimal, and to make sure that we are not overfeeding our bodies with amino acids, because this is also going to be triggering something called autophagy. So your body, because it doesn't have lots of amino acids in lots of food, it will trigger something that essentially it's a mechanism that turns weak cells, zombie cells, misfolded proteins that cannot be efficiently used into energy, into amino acids. So you don't really require that much of protein when you're intermittent fasting, because your body is going to activate a mechanism that is going to be feeding from its own tissue, but not from muscle per se, but from old weak cells that are going to be transformed into energy and amino acids. Okay, so keep that in mind. The next thing is something called AMPK. Now, when you're hungry, something called AMPK is activated because your body is hungry, and this is what regulates your blood glucose level. So blood glucose can be detrimental for your health. You actually can die if they're chronically elevated, and all sorts of issues can arise as well, such as diabetes. Now, AMPK is going to be helping maintain the cellular health, because high glucose levels is detrimental for your cellular health. So AMPK thinks that your body is hungry, which indeed is. It will lower the blood glucose levels, get absorbed by the system better, because it will think that you are in an energy deficit, that you are in a threat environment, that you need to be energetic to be able to survive, get food, go and grab food, because otherwise we will not be able to have evolved to this date. If every time we were hungry, we're not energetic and not able to fire on all cylinders, our ancestors would not have evolved. I would not be sitting here recording this video for you to educate you in that space. So what this does is, again, regulates your blood sugar levels because your body is hungry and therefore it has to feed from somewhere. And it also creates additional mitochondria, which means more energy and more power threshold and more efficiency. So your brain fires more efficiently, you have more energy when done strategically, because starving yourself is not the best thing, but implementing hunger in your day will activate this mechanism as well, the AMPK, which has many benefits. Now, when it comes to those boosters of Sirtuins, you have the NAD, right? That going back to the thing that we said about NAD, because first of all, we want to tackle the natural man-free tools, and then we can start looking to supplements. But there are a couple of NAD boosters that I did not mention. One of them is the quercetin. So quercetin can actually help the Sirtuins work faster and better. And the other thing is NMN. Now, NMN will also boost your NAD and has been proven to do so within studies. Now, it will help boost your NAD, and as a result of that, you will have more energy. Actually, your Sirtuins in your cells will have more energy to conduct their metabolic processes, along with the repairing and packaging of the DNA, so that you stay healthier for longer. So the supplements, the icing on the cake for the Sirtuins, the mechanisms, is resveratrol, NMN, and quercetin. Those are the biggest longevity supplements that you can find out there and the most effective ones based on research. But I will suggest for you to tackle the lowest hanging fruits, do the free stuff that you can actually do, and then think about what you can take, which is be hungry, fast, do cardio so that you can get out of breath. Exercise, this is also helpful because it is a hormetic stress and it turns on your body's self-defense mechanisms. Make sure that you are not overfed all the time to regulate your blood glucose levels, the amino acids. Make sure that you are stressing your body in terms of cold exposure, and then you would have completed all the free tools, and then you can move on to supplements. So those are the ways in which you can actually hack your biological age. You can really hack that if you are making sure that the mechanisms behind you staying healthier for longer are as efficient as possible. And by doing that, when you get to your 70s, 80s, and even 60s, you will look far younger, because your skin is an organ as well, and that needs cells that have an identity, but you will also feel much younger. And there have been studies that have been conducted upon this, so it's not me, because I'm obviously not 60, 70, or 80 years old of age, but these are the facts that if you make sure that the cells are healthy, they keep their identity, no parts of the DNA that should not be read are read, so you're creating a body which is strong and able to maintain itself for many years. So this is what you want. You don't want to be sick, you don't want to catch diseases as you get older, and not only that, but as you're in the years that you're living right now, as an entrepreneur, for example, you will not get ill. What I've observed with myself when implementing those protocols, I haven't get sick for like months. I cannot even remember the last time I got ill. So I can really notice a really big difference when implementing all those protocols, because the last time I got sick was like a year ago or so or more. And I'm not saying this is a good criteria, because last year I was not implementing some of the practices that I now am, and I see very big differences. And also with my clients, that when they start incorporating all those mechanisms, you get ill in a difficult way. So for example, to give you some context, back when I went to see my parents for like holidays and Christmas, my mother, brother, and father had coronavirus, COVID, and my partner as well. I went in contact with all of them, did not get ill. Again, my father, a few months down the line, got the seasonal flu that you get, which is a virus. I wasn't with him for a couple of days, again, did not get ill. My mother, the exact same thing. So I was in contact with the virus and bacteria all the time, did not get ill, because my immune system is on steroids right now, essentially. I'm doing all the mechanisms, I'm adhering to all the protocols that boost those mechanisms. As a result of that, my immune system is so strong, because I'm always making sure that it's not complacent. It does not get complacent. It's always thriving. It's always has a reason and a purpose to stay stronger, because I'm always stressing it. Cold showers, fasting every day, cardio, exercising, and making sure that the glucose levels and amino acids is regulated, all the good stuff. So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like down below, leave a comment down below, and give me any suggestions for any future videos, any ideas that you might have that you want me to analyze. And make sure to tell me if you're actually right now incorporating any of the protocols that I just mentioned in your daily life. And if so, when was the last time you got ill? And let's analyze that as well. So yeah, guys, that was it for today's video. How to hack your biological weight. Can you really hack that? Turns out you really can in a way. And yeah, guys, as I said, and as I say in every single one of my videos, because I genuinely mean, I really cannot wait to see you on the next one. Cheers.